very insulting because I had a father, my mother had a father, he had a father. So we go back generations with fathers in the home. And I come from neighbors whose fathers were in the home. So it was very insulting to me to have someone of another ethnicity speak on my behalf about not having fathers in the home, because that is a negative stereotype that a lot of white Americans have about Black families, that we don't have fathers in the home. And
I'm so glad you said something.
And that is why it is important that we, as Black women, change the narrative. And we're going to start it on Father's Day. We need to change the narrative because we do have fathers. We have fathers in the home. And if they're not in the home, we still have good fathers.
Exactly. And Dina, I'm going to tell you, I agree with you. I'm so grateful. See, that's why you're part of BWP, you and Javon, because y'all bring another element to the conversation, because I can't think of everything and y'all fill in the gaps. And this is bigger than a gap, because it's so true. I come from a lineage of fathers in the home. My father was in the home, his father was in the home, his father was in the home. I have a husband who's in the home, and all of his brothers are fathers who raise their children in the home. And he has 4 brothers. It's 5 of them. And none of them have ever been to jail. All of them have been public servants by way of either the military, the fire department, and still work in the community, still have programs for young Black men, are mentors in so many different ways. And so that whole thing that was said in 2016 was a damn lie.
Welcome to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, where we get VIP access into the lives of Black women, or as we like to call us here, our sister Nistas. We get to hear from some of our favorite sister Nistas as they share their worlds with us and create connections, exchange realities, ideas, and baby, we get to recognize and celebrate how powerful we really are. Our sisterhood here is real, filled with peace, wisdom, hope, love, light, and laughter. You know, the kind you can feel, the kind of encouragement that confirms we can do anything because we have, and the kind of inspiration that proves we can be even greater. This is our world, where if you ain't a Black woman, you may want to be one, or definitely get to know one. It's a Black women's world, and we welcome our sister Nista lovers too. Welcome to our queendom. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and I'm your host, TracyMac. Come on in and relax and sit with me for just a little while. Peace.
Well, hello, everybody. I am TracyMac, your self-discovery companion, the professional peacemaker, and host of Black Women's World Podcast. That's the BWWP, baby. Listen, today I want to say hello to my 2 dynamic co-hosts. Hey, Miss Dina Hamilton.
Hello.
And hey, Miss Javon Cookie Jones.
Hey.
I hope you all are doing well. We did have a little bit of time to talk just before we started recording, but today we are going to talk about Daddy's Girls. In the observance of Father's Day, we want to talk about the relationships with fathers for so many different reasons. But first, I want to give a shout out to our top countries who are listening to us on the BWWP. This week, we have the United States, of course, France, bonjour, the UK, hello, Canada, you all came in number 4. Germany and Brazil are a tie. So hello and oi. And then on our new market is Belgium and Denmark. So I'm like, okay, Belgium, Denmark, what y'all think about people hearing you in Belgium and Denmark?
That's awesome. That is really awesome.
I am blown away. Yes, I'm here for it too. Welcome.
Yes, welcome, Belgium and Denmark and everybody else. And stateside, again, this week, on the BWWP, who will be listening to us about Daddy's Girls, we have the state of Texas. Texas is number 1. Y'all coming in with Fort Worth, Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston. Javon, you did some work out in Houston in the past year, haven't you?
Yes, ma'am. I have a few clients in Houston and I have a few in Dallas.
So we may have to go out there and see your clients since Texas keeps coming up. Number one, Dina, have you ever been to Texas?
Oh yes, several times. Yes, ma'am. It's hot, and I know it's blazing now.
Yes. Well, yeah, I have gone to Texas. I've been to Dallas and Houston. Looking forward to traveling to Houston again.
San Antonio was good. You said San Antonio was on the list?
Yes.
Fort Worth, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So listen, daddies, girls, we're talking to you. Number 3, Atlanta. Y'all have been consistent. Hot Atlanta. I think we need to take a trip out there. I'm seriously thinking to do them first. Since they come in as number 2. Sorry, Atlanta's number 2. And number 3, North Carolina.
Oh, we're making our way on up. Okay.
We're making our way up. And that's Charlotte, Durham, Garner, Dina, Holly Springs. Wake Forest is on the list. And our number 4 is Ohio, as it has been. It was number 1, but other places have chimed in too. And number 5, can y'all believe we are in Manhattan in a place called Kew Garden Hills? Have you all ever heard of Kew Garden Hills? That's Kew Garden Hills in New York. Yeah, so we are there. So we thank you all. And Javon, Virginia slipped just a little bit, but they are tied. They're tied with California. So Norfolk, shout out to you, Richmond and Alexandria, and of course, California, San Francisco, Carlsbad, and Pasadena. So welcome you all to the BWWP. It's Black Women's World Podcast, baby. So we are coming up on Father's Day, or Father's Day will be Sunday in the United States. I don't know how other countries celebrate Mother's Day or Father's Day. And Dana, you brought up a great point as to when we talked about this particular subject. What were you sharing with us earlier?
Yeah, I was in the car driving this morning and on the Ricky Smiley radio show.
The Ricky Smiley?
Ricky Smiley radio show. Yes, thank you. Pardon me. They were talking about Father's Day and how we don't do near the things for fathers that we do for mothers. He could call right now and there will be restaurants have reservations for Father's Day. Now, at Mother's Day, if you made a phone call right now, there would be no reservations. So it's like Father's Day is like this big afterthought. And I was driving along and I was thinking, is that true? I hope we don't do that. I was thinking to my husband and my children were in the car. I was like, do we do that to Daddy? And of course they said, no. And then I thought, I don't know. Do we do that?
Javon, what you think?
Why do we do that?
Yes, we do that.
Why do we do that?
I don't think it's intentionally done. I really believe it's done because of the temperament of fathers. Most mothers are extra with it. Oh, y'all better get me something. Or, some of them take that, or some of them are Mother's Day's coming up, so it's added a little pressure. When you go to a male, hey, what you want to do for Father's Day? They so used to doing what we need them to do. Whatever you want to do. Or they may say something specific. I mean, we can have a cookout or something like that. Or, you can do da-da-da. Most men will get whatever they want without waiting for you to buy it for them as a gift. So they'll go out and do whatever they need. So come Father's Day, you don't know because they have it already. Or like, look at the gifts that are on the shelves for Father's Day. You got power tools, but you got men that don't know how to use power tools. You have
what about those golfing things, those golfing kits?
Yeah, different things like that. And I mean, for our community, it's a handful of our guys that golf. But it's a lot of other gifts that you can get, but what's on sale or in the Mother's Day, you got the jewelry, you got the clothing items, you got shoes, you got flowers, and you can't buy men those. You can, but most men don't want them. What am I doing with some flowers? It's nice, but most men want some. But I'm just saying, so what they don't already have is that little extra thing. It might come in handy, but for Father's Day, the kids, they're going to always treat it a little differently because the role of that father is not the same as the mom.
I agree. I think also too, even if it's not Mother's Day or Father's Day, the plethora of items that are available to women, you know, men are kind of boxed in, you know, like you say, we have so many different things we can purchase, whether it be things for our hair, you know, earrings, necklaces, jewelry, a belt, a purse, different kinds of purses, different size of purses, purses for special occasions, all kind of shoes, a heel, a flat, a mule, a tennis shoe, a wedge. You know, we have so many different things we can buy. And I think the options for men are less, but I think they're expanding. But I think the same thing goes for Father's Day, because even the advertisements, because people don't like to think we are moved by advertisements, but we are. They're going to put a Sears commercial up, and Sears, this is not an endorsement for you, but they're going to put a store up that has toolboxes, you know, the red ones that you roll in your garage, and they're going to put socks and neckties or a watch. And so it kind of programs the human brain is that this is what men want. Correct. And it's not always true. So I think, Dina, I think what they said on Ricky Smiley's show is right, that it's less attention. And I think it has to do with marketing. I think it has to do with relationship and expectations, because what a mom usually does for children, like Javon said, a good mom or a mom who's doing her best, it's frontal, it's out there, it's in the open. But usually what a good father does is usually not as visible sometimes, or he may not be as, we talk about affection or emotions. What y'all think?
Well, I think we need to change that. I think we need to change that, because we have good fathers or have had good fathers, and we have good fathers to our children. So I think we need to change that. And when it comes to gift giving, you're absolutely right. Brian, we were so terrible about what to get. We didn't know what to get. So he came up with this thing. So he did a Google Doc, right? It said Dad's wish list, right? Dad's wish list. And this has been over a couple of years. I just want you to see that most of this stuff is crossed out.
Okay.
It's crossed off. But there are no small things on Dad's wish list. There are like keyboards, a firearm.
And you mean piano keyboards, not computer keyboards. Okay.
Yes. Although that is on there too. Monitors, like these huge, he has like 3 monitors in his office with, you know, this huge setup. And I'm thinking, I don't even know how you got a room for all this stuff in here. There are big items on his list. But yeah, they're all like crossed out. So what they would want, I think, is maybe just a little more attention. I try to get attention during the year, but maybe just a little bit more attention. We gotta change the narrative.
Yeah, because I agree. I think we have changed it to those of us who choose. And I think maybe this conversation can maybe help those people aware of how to change it. Because like Brian, Owen will tell you exactly what he wants. Matter of fact, he will wait until the Monday after Mother's Day and start saying, y'all can get me this, 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 and this, and this. And like Brian, most of his likes or the things he wants are very expensive. Even if it's a pair of shoes, you know, Owen likes to dress. He likes to look nice. And I can buy a pair of shoes for $30, $40, $50. My tennis shoes may be expensive, but a good pair of shoes for a professional Black man is going to run $200 and up, you know? And so he may want a watch or something like that. And so it's like, it's different. So I think the gift giving, maybe the price tag may be a little much more, because a child can draw a picture for either parent and make them feel good. But I think when we get into those ages where you want something, you know, and you ask somebody what they want, you give them what they want, not what you want them to have. What you say, Javon?
I was in there thinking, when I was in a relationship with my son's dad, he was not the gift type. He did not care about anything. He worked hard. He provided. He put everything he made on the table. Like, look, you know what to do with this. Make it happen. You know, and I'm like, hey, you want to go out for Father's Day, or you want to do no, I'm good. I want to eat at home. What we having, So it totally took my mind off of, let me try to find him a gift. I could buy a gift, a nice gift. And because he is just such a country bumpkin, that he will have a nice watch or he'd be like, oh, this is nice, but I'd rather have something that won't break when I'm on the job, because all he did was work, which is a good thing, but he was just so simple. So Father's Day was never a thing in our home, because I'm like, he does not care,
Mm-hmm.
But I think everybody has different dynamics. You have some families that don't have a father and never had a father in generations,
Mm-hmm.
a visible father, I say.
Yeah.
So somebody's sitting there like, I don't know what they're talking about. I have no idea.
And exactly why we're talking about it, because in a Black woman's world, there are men. Our men are our husbands, our sons, our fathers, our brothers, our uncles, our male cousins, our co-workers. So we have to be aware. So in no way, shape, or form are we talking on behalf of men or thinking that we think like a man. That Steve Harvey and them did all that. That ain't what we do here. It's just from the woman's perspective. And the first perspective is, what was your relationship like with your father? Because we're talking about daddy's girls, and we all have fathers, of course, different relationships with our fathers. Some things we assume that were there, some things were not. So what overall, or how would you describe your relationship with your father?
Well, first off, I think before we get into that, I think since we're speaking to a global audience, and I think they need to know why it's a big deal that we're talking about our fathers, because in the global world, it is not seen that Black children have fathers.
Yeah.
You know what, Dina? I'm glad you said that, because that is true. What the media puts out, what movies and Hollywood put out, what music puts out, you would think ain't no Black daddies or ain't no good Black daddies. So continue to expound on that, since you brought it up.
So I think that it is hugely important. And I did not know what the perspective was. I had a different perspective on fathers, because I did grow up with my father in the house, but all of my friends did too.
Yeah.
So when I started listening to, I think it was probably 2016 during the election, when the then candidate was talking about how our children didn't have fathers, and it was very negative. And I was like, who is he talking about? Because I had a daddy and my children have a father. So it was kind of confusing to me.
And fix it. In the home. A father in the home.
And it was insulting. I found it very insulting, because I had a father, my mother had a father, he had a father. So we go back generations with fathers in the home. And I come from neighbors whose fathers were in the home. So it was very insulting to me to have someone of another ethnicity speak on my behalf about not having fathers in the home, because that is a negative stereotype that a lot of white Americans have about Black families, that we don't have fathers in the home. And
I'm so glad you said something.
And that is why it is important that we, as Black women, change the narrative. And we're going to start it on Father's Day. We need to change the narrative, because we do have fathers. We have fathers in the home. And if they're not in the home, we still have good fathers.
Exactly. And Dina, I'm going to tell you, I agree with you. I'm so grateful. See, that's why you're part of the BWP, you and Javon, because y'all bring another element to the conversation, because I can't think of everything, and y'all fill in the gaps. And this is bigger than a gap, because it's so true. I come from a lineage of fathers in the home. My father was in the home, his father was in the home, his father was in the home. I have a husband who's in the home, and all of his brothers are fathers who raise their children in the home. And he has 4 brothers. It's 5 of them. And none of them have ever been to jail. All of them have been public servants by way of either the military, the fire department, and still work in the community, still have programs for young Black men, are mentors in so many different ways. And so that whole thing that was said in 2016 was a damn lie. And I got upset too. And I think you and I talked about that right when it was being said, because we do have fathers. We have strong fathers. And I have a father who was a father to many. So, and I don't mean many biological children, but many people all over the world who may not have had fathers. Right. He stepped into those roles. Javon, what do you say about that?
Well, I'm like in agreement with you all. Even though my family dynamics are different, my situation, I feel, is so unique because I was raised in a single parent home where my father was my caregiver. So I only know that, I'm not gonna say I only know, my mother was there till I was about 7 or 8 years old, but the rest of my life was my father. No, we did not have a typical relationship, but he was a great father for what he knew how to do. He did what he knew how to do and did it well. So I know that role is definitely not something seen. You don't see single fathers being praised. You don't see single fathers being spoken about unless they're in poverty and doing something illegal or something like that. You don't see a hardworking educator, you know, with 3 kids, raising them on his own, coming home, cooking meals, making sure we had something, even if he had to go in the woods and shoot it, which he did several Saturdays, whether it been a deer, a rabbit, a squirrel, we ate, you know, and he did that when he didn't have money. When he did have money, he shot something, brought it home, soaked it in the sink, and made sure we ate good. So those types of fathers are not celebrated ever or talked about. The media only shows you the kids going to the prison to see the dad, you know, the mothers that don't have a male in the home, things of that nature. So
if they see it once, they just assume that that's the way that it is for everyone. And
us.
Yeah, for us. And I believe that is the stereotype of when they see us, that is how they see us.
Sure.
Yes. And that is why I think it's important to make sure that everyone knows around the world that it is not that way for everyone, just right. Like every white father is not in the home. And exactly. No one ever makes a big deal about that. Black mothers are not the only single mothers. There are single mothers of every race, ethnicity, nationality. So it is always hurtful for me that we as a people, as Black women, get singled out in that regard.
And I will tell you, some of that was manipulation. I'm especially in the 70s when the Black mom was trying to stay at home and getting assistance. You got more assistance if there was no male presence in the home. So it made it easier and more financially feasible for her to even sometimes to pretend as if she didn't have a husband, because she was able to get food stamps, because even then we were marginalized when it comes to income. That's still happening now in America. Yes. We don't make the same amount of money. We don't get the same jobs. You know, the interview is different for people. You've got nepotism that works against our favor. You've got racism that works against our favor. So when you think about even in the Black home, and I'm going to give credit to one of Quandra Adams, she also has a podcast, and I want to shout her out. She was, her podcast is geared to politics and how we're disenfranchised politically, and then how that affects other areas. And she just shared today on social media that apparently during World War II in Greenville, South Carolina, Black women decided to stay home and be a mom to their own kids. Isn't that a good thing to do while their husbands were at war? Meanwhile, that meant they had to stop working for white families. They had to stop being nannies and cooks. And the white community in Greenville, South Carolina, this is documented, and I'll share this in the link in the podcast. They were so angry that the Greenville City Council put out an ordinance saying all Negro women must be employed, regardless of whether they want to or not, or they will be sent to jail or pay a fine, simply because white families were complaining they didn't have anyone to cook and do their laundry. So when the Black mom left the home forcibly by law, and the Black father was gone, in this case, to war, or other cases to work a job, that left the home empty as far as governance, as far as care, so you had children that had to take on parental roles. So it's a whole dynamic as to why, some of the reasons why the Black family was disjointed. Let's go back to the days of slavery. Our enslaved forefathers, they were ripped apart, you know, by slave owners. They didn't keep a family together. So those historical, in the historical context, as well as in the fabrics of the country, it's always been against the Black family. But I'd be doggone sure that you have 3 women representing lineages of Black families who defied that odd, and that we exhort and lift up our Black men and our fathers, those who chose to take the role that they were given and be the best they could be, although imperfect, because none of us are perfect. And that's one of the first points that we want to make in this particular episode, Daddy's Girls, is all dads are not deadbeat. All dad, especially Black fathers, because we don't have white fathers. We can't talk about them. But what do y'all say about that as far as people talking about deadbeat dads?
Everybody's experience is different. You know, I'm not with my son's father, but I would never say anything negative to my sons or anybody about him, because without him, my sons wouldn't be the geniuses, the brilliant young men that they are, the powerful Black, I say kings, even though they're still young. I got some good sons. And I cannot take the credit because I didn't teach them. I couldn't even potty train right, y'all. I didn't even know how to potty train a 2-year-old. I'm sitting there sitting my baby on the little potty seat. I can't say exactly what he said. He said, but get this crap out of here. He needs to stand up. He does not pee like you. And going all the way back to that point, I'm like, you know, I could not have done this without him in this level of result. My sons are amazing because of their dad. You know, even though he's not my oldest dad, he has stepped in at a time in my life where I needed him to be that masculine figure for my oldest son. And everywhere we go, they say, oh man, you look just like the oldest one, talking to him. You know, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is not his child, but
well, you know, my grandma always said, if you feed them long enough, they'll start looking like
That's what they say.
We say, Dina, if you feed them long enough, they'll start looking like you.
Yes, ma'am. That's what Claudia says.
But because it didn't work out with he and I, doesn't mean that it didn't work out with the kids.
And that's our point number 2. Point number 2.
Wait a minute, hold on. I ain't finished with point 1 yet.
Okay. So let's let Dina go back to point 1. Javon, you jumped the gun, but we good still. Point number 1. Go back to it, Dina.
Oh yeah, because I can't let this go by. Because all dads are not deadbeats. I got 2 examples of that. My mom was pregnant with me at 17 years old, and my dad married my mother because he said that he was not going to allow another man to raise his child. That was my dad, right? So that's number 1, and that comes from a man who was not in the home with his dad, but he decided that he was going to do something different. Number 2, I met this young man in 2013 who was a single father to a 5-year-old.
Wow.
Single father to a 5-year-old, and had custody of him since he was 18 months old. He was 26 when he gained custody. And that man is Brian Hamilton. He is not a deadbeat dad. I didn't have one. I didn't marry one. Both of them took their roles as fathers seriously and decided that they were going to do exactly what needed to be done for their children. So that if you get me talking about some dads and some Black men, that's why you're not going to get too much drama from me when it comes to Black men, because I only had good examples in my life with Black men. So I can talk all day about the goodness of the Black man because I see it. I witnessed it. I'm a result of it. I'm sitting in my closet because of it. So I can't. So when the drama comes, I can't be nowhere near the drama
I'm
because
with you. I'm with you, Dana.
my home is peaceful when it comes to that, and I got my mind is at rest and at peace at night because of two men that decided to take the vow not just to their wives but to their children first.
Right. Yes, yes. Dina, I'm with you on that all the way. It's almost same story. My father married my mom at 17. She was pregnant with my sister, you know, and for the same fact of no one else will raise my children. And I know that was hard back in the 60s, that back then, even to be found pregnant, you know, and what they must have gone through. And then to have another child. And I told my mom they were just fast. She had another child 11 months later. Now, wasn't that something? No, they're 11 months apart. I'm like, oh, girl. But even, you know, and 4 years later, I came along. But still I can say the same thing. I have never, even to this day, even when it comes to romantic relationships, I have never had a bad relationship with a Black man. Mm-hmm. My dad, my father, my brother, my cousins, my uncle. And I don't think that makes us unicorns. I just think maybe we're saying it because sometimes you get a little pushback when people say, you know, people try to make you ashamed sometimes.
Yeah. When
you say those things, but it's just the truth of my life. And that may be one reason why up until maybe I'd say 50s, because I'm just 52, that most of my relationships, friendship wise, have been with men until the past 3 or 4 years. And I know that has to do with the example that I have had and even married to Owen McNeil. He is, I say, the best father in the world, hands down, for Jada. Because people say, you know, the best dad in the world. Whoever you're saying that about, that's good for you. But I have to put that caveat on the end. The best dad in the world for Jada. And even taking care of her when I was sick early on, right after I had her, I had to have another surgery. He took care of her then. And still to this day, I tell people, if you had to pit us against one another, he would be a better father than I'm a mother. Because he is completely selfless when it comes to his child. And I'm grateful for that because it's like the deadbeat stereotype that people try to put. And I know this even from a professional perspective. I work for the state of North Carolina for this child support office. We didn't see individual clients. We serviced the 100 counties. And let me tell you, in that system, it's Black, white, Hispanic, Czechoslovakian, Russian, Brazilian, French, is all kind of dads in that system who the court is having to order and fine to pay child support. It ain't just Black men. Right. It's not just Black men. So with that being said, number one is and we could say Black fathers are not deadbeat dads. And then going back to point number 2, Javon, just because the relationship doesn't work out with the mama, it doesn't mean it doesn't work out with the children. Speak on it, baby.
That's real. That's just, it is what it is. Like I said, I could sit here and say what didn't work out with me and my relationship, but that has nothing to do with what he put into both my sons. I'm sitting here, even looking behind me. I know you can't really see these little frames on the wall over here. You know, this is my firearm safety class, but my son sat out front with, I'm gonna call it a circular saw because that's the only saw I know, but he sat out there with a saw. It was leftover boards in this building when I first got this building. And I was like, throw that stuff out. My son cut each one of those things. His dad told him how to do it and framed every one of these National Rifle Association posters. And it's all over, all along the wall. You know,
those of you who can't see it, go to our YouTube channel for TracyMac BWWP, and you can see Javon's academy, her Kapow Academy, where she's showing the framework that her son did.
But the important thing about that is not how, you know, how they're framed. Somebody could say, oh, he did that wrong. But my son is 17. He's a Black male. He took his time out front of the shop and cut those things himself. Actually, he hand painted them with some black paint, let them dry, and then cut them and framed them. You know, but those are the things I could never teach them. I don't think I would have hung those things up, to be honest. Or I probably would have taped them. It's a center block wall. It would have been neat. But those things like that, I could not teach my son. And I don't know another 17-year-old in the city that I live in or in the area that knows how to use that saw, for one, to hit each corner proper and whatever. But anyway, he's at his dad's right now, helping him redo his floor and all those things, putting new flooring down and stuff. I don't know a 17-year-old like that, but he didn't get that from me. So I can never say that they have a deadbeat father figure or anything like that, because he's the father to the kids in the community. Everybody in the community call him Pops. Like, yo, what's up, Pops? He don't know who he's talking to most of the time. He's just like, hey, give me a hand with this. Help me unload this off the back of the truck. I'm like, who are these kids? Oh, some guys that just spoke. I just got them to give me a hand with this. But that's so admirable to me, because that role of a Black man in our community does not exist.
Yes.
It's very, very rare that you see things like that.
Yes.
So I can't say anything. I'm like, no, we didn't work out.
So,
but it is still amazing that he still holds this role in all these kids, like my two, plus the community of kids, you know.
Stay tuned for more of the BWWP.
Stay tuned for a special presentation and more of the BWWP.
My dad's name is Wiley Peaches Cofield, because no one knew his government name. And if you knew his government name, I knew that you worked with him, because everybody else in town, no one else knew that. And he was amazing. And I think I've spoken enough about my dad. He was amazing, and I'm truly thankful, blessed that I can call him my father. As I reflect here on Father's Day, for the past few years has always been a very bittersweet day, because I lost my dad, and I love my dad. Even, prior to him leaving, I would be with my dad all the time. My dad picked my children up from school. My dad cut my grass. Now, I have a husband, but that's what my dad wanted to do for us, right? So it's always a bittersweet day. So while I celebrate all fathers, I celebrate my husband, I always have to reminisce on the days of old. And I realized how incredibly blessed I was, and I had no idea. You never know how blessed you are until the blessing seems to be gone. But I'm so incredibly thankful for everything that he instilled in me. I'm thankful for him being ever present every single day of my life. I'm thankful for him popping up on my college campus at North Carolina A&T State University on his way to Charlotte, just out of the blue. And college students, that's kind of dangerous. But I'm thankful that he was there. I'm thankful that he provided everything that I needed. Not everything I wanted, but everything that I needed to get me through this thing called life. I wanted to continue to have him, but what I realized is that he's always here with me. He is with Devin. He is with Braxton. And every time I look at my brother, I see him, and I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that Elijah, Jessica, and Sydney have such an incredible father to look at. No matter what the relationship, there is no way that any of his children can say that my dad has not been there, that my dad has not been present, that my dad has not been everything that I needed for him to be. And I'm grateful that they can say that about their dad.
Yes.
And I am truly touched.
My dad is Josiah Benjamin Wilson Jr., better known as Bup, B-U-P, or Bubba to the family. I can remember in the 80s, my dad, he was a school teacher. I can remember him saying, man, I didn't make but $9,000 such and such dollars this year as a single parent this year. And I said, Daddy, you need to go get some food stamps. It's worse. I'll be damned. I'm going to keep on working. So he would work and do little mechanic stuff, work on cars on the side of the yard after he got out of school and things like that, off of work from school, and switch from his suit and get right into his overalls and work out on cars and things like that. We always managed to have, and I'm sitting here thinking, as a single father making at that time $9,000 a year, we never lived but one place. He was a homeowner, which he still lives there today. We never sat in the dark. We never were without water. Where the neighborhood may have been without water, we had water, light, gas, some type of something to eat. Even if we had to be creative, we had something to chew on. He did what he knew. He was the oldest of 15. He lost his father. His father was only 54 years old. So he took on the responsibility of parenting his siblings, being the provider for them, as well as taking on his 3 that he gave birth to. So I look at that and I'm like, that is so commendable. Even though I didn't get the affection I thought I needed from my father, or I didn't have the lunch dates or daddy-daughter time, and I wasn't the typical daddy's girl, I'm his only girl, and he did what he knew. So I just say to my father, Josiah Wilson Jr., I really appreciate you and thank you for everything that you instilled in me, everything that you did, all the sacrifices that you made for me and my 2 brothers, even the fact that he gave us the gift of music by providing us musical instruments. And at 10 years old, he brought me my first flute, in which he was a musician, he was a band teacher, but he gave us music, he gave us all sorts of instruments, provided us with the books. He did not teach music at home though. It was on us to get it. So I just commend him for stepping up in that way and giving us what we still utilize today. My brother still makes money playing in a band. My other brother is a law enforcement officer, but he still plays his trumpet for different occasions and things. So I just commend him for being who he is and what he knew. So thanks, Dad.
This Walter Earl Jones Sr. I could say so much about my dad, and I did say earlier that my dad taught me from the pulpit. So he taught principles, not just the Bible. But my dad gave me the kingdom of God. I have to say that, and spirituality, and even he gave me those things and showed me church. And I think that's 2 different perspectives. But as a pastor, as a Marine, y'all can imagine how strict that was. But I just thank God for what you all have said and what I learned from my dad. We were not an affectionate family at all. It wasn't until I was grown that we even hugged. But my dad, and like many men, many Black men specifically, they showed their affection through provisions.
That's right.
And so when we're looking for, I know nowadays things may have evolved differently, because I know my husband is affectionate with my daughter, and I know your children's fathers and husbands are affectionate with your children. But back then, my dad showed affection through provisions. And like you, Dina, or like you, Javon, it was my sister had 2 babies at a young age, and she had every opportunity to go down to the WIC office and get food stamps and all that. And my dad said, no, you will not. Mm-hmm. If we're going to provide for this family, And that's what we did. He did all he had to do. We did the old folks term. We pulled together and came through. And I think she did end up getting WICs, but she did not get on food stamps. I'm not saying it's a problem with that. I'm just stating how he felt about it. And so I thank God for my dad giving me an opening to a relationship with God, and then cultivating that on Sunday mornings, Wednesday nights at church or whatever. But I don't think I missed anything. My first lunch date with my dad one-on-one was in 2006. A lot of people assumed we had that because he'd been that to other people. But I honestly believe that God gifted me. I do. With what I didn't get from my dad's presence. I believe some kind of way he gave me that innately. That I appreciate, who my dad was or is, and even to my siblings, my brother and my sister, he did his best to do what he needed to do.
You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast. Let's continue the conversation.
Yes.
And to your note, Javon, we all had lives prior to our relationships, right? And the same is true for me and even my husband. So he had a relationship with a young lady that resulted in his oldest child, which is Elijah, and he was 5 when I met him. But the relationship just didn't work out. And instead of giving up his child, he actually fought for his child. He fought for his child, and his mother shared with me that when they went to court, she saw that he had won custody of Elijah. She said out of her own mouth, I really thought he was going to give the baby to me, because Elijah was 18 months. I really thought he was going to give the baby to me, and I would raise him while he was working. And when he didn't do that, it shocked me. That was a 26-year-old man who decided to do that for himself. Rear this child. So just because the relationship does not work does not mean that your obligation to the child stops. And clearly in both our cases, that did not happen. So yeah, no, they're not deadbeats. And to the point number 2, just because the relationship didn't work just does not mean that the children and their relationship did not work. So here, okay. Let's get a new narrative. And I'm so glad we're talking about this.
Because and I'm going to even add to that narrative, just because it doesn't work out for the parents. My parents were married for 48 years. Now, can you use that for a status, America and all over the world? No. Take that stat. You cannot. And that's nothing to brag on. But my parents were married for 48 years, and they had a good marriage. For that length of time. They were even an example of marriage. They taught marriage workshops all over the world, literally. But in 2006, between 2008, they decided to get a divorce. Now, I know we want all of our marriages to last forever, but I think in some cases you're together for a purpose. And when that purpose is over, the marriage is over. Was there a little bit of drama in there? Honestly speaking, yeah, but not to the degree that it could have been, because they just decided, okay, we're done. So just because their marriage was over, all I knew was them being married. And yeah, it was like, whoa. But just because their marriage was over, it didn't mean my relationship with either one of my parents changed.
Correct.
They were still my mom and my dad. And I don't know what it's like for parents to divorce when you're young. I only know what it's like for them to divorce when you're in your 40s. And I'm thinking it's more hurtful because you've known that all your life. But at the same time, just because it didn't work out between them, it doesn't mean that you have to change the relationship with the parent, because that's them. That's still my dad. She's still my mom. And
Right.
even with that, when I look at it, my dad was a wonderful dad to the degree I knew he did his best. I did a previous episode with my parents called Parents of People Too, and we talk about that. But my dad fathered me more so from the pulpit, because he was such a servant to so many other people that it was like he even brought people into our home. Whether he had a drug and alcohol program that he led, some of those people that couldn't get into a rehab place, he'd bring them to the house. Even Tracy, I need you to go sleep in the room with Portia because so-and-so is coming and they're going to need to stay in your room. He was just that much of a father figure. And I think his ability to father still to this day is so expansive. And it may sound crazy to the world or even to anybody listening. I don't think he could have just fathered us, his own biological children. I believe his ability to father was literally, he had the capacity to father thousands of people, which he did. And so even so, as it pertains to him being a father, I don't think I lost or missed out on anything, because number one, you can't miss what you never had. And number two, when I look back, I'm glad my dad has been that to so many people, in my life. And I've seen him take people from brokenness to being whole. It's people I still connect with on social media right now that say themselves, whenever I bring my dad up on social media, had it not been for him, I would not be the man or the woman. I'm talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And Javon, I know you know that to be true.
Yeah, I was gonna say, had it not been for him to have me down there for those few years, along with your mom, I would not be who I am today. I would have missed out on a whole plethora of items and nuggets and things, that I definitely still utilize today.
Yeah. So I mean, in the episode of Daddy's Girls, we're just sharing with the world our Black women's world experience. This is our world. And we can't talk about any other person's story, but I hope more people can vibe with this, and give Black men credit, because that's number 3. Give credit when credit. Javon said, even when it ain't due. Javon, why did you say number 3 was give credit even when it ain't due?
I said that because I have realized over the years, I can be so critical and harsh, and I'm pointing out everything that you didn't do. I'm forgetting to say what you did do. And even with my kids, they might have heard me say, oh, you forgot to do this or you forgot to do that, but never heard me say, I appreciate you for this. And you know how pleasing it is to your children to hear you praise their father out loud?
Yes.
So even when he plucked my nerves, I'm still like, let me figure something else out and let him know how much I do appreciate him or did appreciate him, even when it wasn't right. I said, I might want the house painted white and you come in here with a pale green. I'm like, thank you so much for painting this, but we're gonna need this white. So it's just a way of doing things where you still giving them credit. Men love for their ego to be stroked and things like that. So you have to find ways to give credit when it's not even due. I tell my sons all the time, no matter what your dads have done, whether it's been wrong or right, you still got to honor them. That's something I grew up on. Honor your father and your mother, your days will be long. And honoring them honoring them doesn't necessarily mean to just bend over backwards and kiss their feet. But even with the nuggets that they gave you as a child, like don't do this, lead as the man, I said, you honor them by doing just that. Honor them by doing what was instilled in you. So think about those things and carry it on. Pass the torch to your babies. And what they didn't do, fix it. Yes. Switch it up and do what you would have wanted them to do when it comes to your children.
And I think that goes to, as you said earlier before we started recording, that goes to breaking those cycles and those generational curses. Because when a child hears you praise their father, we're not talking about mothers today. We already had our day. But when a child hears you praise their father, that sets them up.
Correct.
To break some of this foolishness and these cycles and curses. Dina, what do you say about that?
Oh, absolutely. I really want to, we have check-ins, Brian and I, we'll check in, you good? that type of thing, because I understand things happen. And I've had friends whose relationships were not, they saw through the completion. And I just want to be able to, have a nice, honest conversation. Are you good? Am I doing, or am I meeting your expectations? Almost like you do for your job, right?
Evaluation.
Yeah, like in evaluation. I think that every relationship should be evaluated, and just to make sure that you are on the same page. The last thing you want is for something to have been festering for 5 years. You have no idea that this, was a thing. You thought it was over, and it's really not. So those check-ins are imperative for me. I want to make sure that they're good, but I want to make sure, like, when I married my husband, I had something to look at as an example. I want to make sure that the girls that are in the home right now are seeing that as an example for them too, because I really want that to carry on. And if it doesn't, then they know exactly, where to pick back up. And because honestly, I got married so late, I never thought that I was going to be married. So I was just prepared to live a single life. But the good thing is, my father taught me how to work. He taught me a great work ethic. And even without a husband, I secured my own home, my own cars, my own everything. It wasn't a need that I had a partner in life. It was very much a desire. That I have one. And I think that if I can instill that in them, because I don't want them to think that a husband is the end all be all. If they want one, I want them to have one. If it does not happen for them, I want them to still live an amazing life. Incredible life. I want all of their dreams to come true.
Dina, that is so good, being prepared. And I think, I don't know if it was the era that our fathers were in, that they were raised in, but that my dad didn't believe in women's job versus men's job as it pertains to chores in the home. So I had to cut grass, wash cars. My brother had to learn to cook, so we were cross-trained. So I mean, then I hated it. I'm like, my other friends, my other girlfriends, they ain't got to cut no grass and be out here and in the heat and help you paint the house and all this kind of stuff. Why I gotta? But when I think and I look back, like you, Dina, I was a self-sufficient young woman. I've said several times, I didn't have marriage on my mind because I thought I couldn't have children. So I didn't want to put the burden on a man of not being able to be a father. But I had my own home, my own house, my own car, self-sufficient. I could travel, shop, whatever. And I think that's what opened me up to not having to feel I had to be married. I didn't feel I had to, but I wanted a relationship. I didn't even say I wanted to be married. Owen opened me up to marriage. He wasn't the first person to ask. But how he was just as a gentleman. And I will say he did not have a father in the home, but he had a brother who assumed the father role. He had uncles who helped out that made up for a lot of that. And so when I think about the giving credit, I always want to give credit to, because some men say, and this is all races and all nationalities, they're not fathers because they didn't have a role model. And some men are excellent fathers because they did not have a role model. And that's what I have to say about Owen. He is an excellent father because he didn't have a father in the home. And so you can pick your heart. you can pick your heart. And so I appreciate those, specifically those Black men, because I'm gonna tell you, I'm not one who is Black men. I'm just attracted to Black men. Okay, that's just my preference. And ain't nothing like a fine Black man doing a damn thing. I'm just saying. Well, his family, his job, his work ethic, it's just a beautiful thing. So again, the three things we're talking about is all dads aren't deadbeat. That's number one. Number two is just because it don't work out with the mama, it don't mean it can't work for the children. Right. And number three, we're going to give credit when it's due, because it helps stop the cycle, the negative cycles, and breaks generational curses. Javon, what do you have to say in one of the, as we try to wrap up?
I was just sit here thinking, one of my key objectives with raising my sons, I always wanted them to see love. I told you all earlier, I grew up in a home where it was kind of hard. My dad was, I can't say really bitter, but my dad was hurt after my mom got sick, and he really didn't know how to get healing for the hurt he felt with her mental illness and somewhat of an abandonment feeling, and not knowing at that time in that era in the early 80s, mental illness and how to cope and everything else. So my dad was a provider. He worked hard. He didn't say too much. He just showed me with his actions what to do. I'm independent the way I am today because of him. I work hard. I have crazy work ethic. I'm driven and all that because my dad always did the same. That's what he showed me. So I'm sitting here thinking, I always wanted my sons to see love because I did not have that in my home. It was kind of cold. And the first representation of love was Claire and Cliff Huxtable from The Cosby Show. The second representation was Tracy, your mom and dad. And I thought it was so unreal. It was kind of like a culture shock for me to see him kiss her forehead, then her nose, and then do little wiggly things on her cheek. I'm like, Black people do this stuff for real, other than Cliff Huxtable? So it was so shocking. I've always desired that. And I'm like, oh my God, that's really real. So even though it didn't work, like I said, with my son's dad and stuff like that, I still want them to see love today. So how can I say, oh, that deadbeat such and such? That makes no sense. I always tell them, y'all got a good daddy. You better appreciate that joker because he may not be here. You never know what happens in life, but you always sow that love and show love. When I see him, we greet, we hug, even if I'm boiling inside with whatever, but I show love because my kids need to see that. That helps them grow and mature to better men. So it's like, I just wanted to say that portion because love is not physically seen all the time in our homes. Yes. Some of us have never seen it. Some of us, we want it, we desire it so much, but you got to create it sometimes.
That's good, Javon. That's really good. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Dana?
Just being with you ladies every week has really opened up, enhanced my experiences in life, because it just makes you know that, everyone's experience is so different, and yet so much alike.
Yeah.
And that is a beautiful thing. As I reflect here on Father's Day, for the past few years has always been a very bittersweet day, because I lost my dad, and I love my dad. Even, prior to him leaving, I would be with my dad all the time. My dad picked my children up from school. My dad cut my grass. Now, I have a husband, but that's what my dad wanted to do for us, right? So it's always a bittersweet day. So while I celebrate all fathers, I celebrate my husband, I always have to reminisce on the days of old. And I realized how incredibly blessed I was. And I had no idea. You never know how blessed you are until the blessing seems to be gone.
Yeah.
But I'm so incredibly thankful for everything that he instilled in me. I'm thankful for him being ever present every single day of my life. I'm thankful for him popping up on my college campus at North Carolina A&T State University on his way to Charlotte, just out of the blue. And college students, that's kind of dangerous. But yes. I'm thankful that he was there. I'm thankful that he provided everything that I needed. Not everything I wanted, but everything that I needed to get me through this thing called life. I wanted to continue to have him, but what I realized is that he's always here with me. He is with Devin. He is with Braxton. And every time I look at my brother, I see him. And I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that Elijah, Jessica, and Sydney have such an incredible father to look at. No matter, what the relationship, there is no way that any of his children can say that my dad has not been there, that my dad has not been present, that my dad has not been everything that I needed for him to be. And I'm grateful that they can say that about their dad.
Yes.
And I am truly touched. And for those sister Nista lovers who love the sisters, but that may be an area that may need to be enhanced, that could be enhanced. It's never too late. It's never too late. You just have to put in the work, because that's what happened, and it happens over time.
Yeah.
So if you start today and you don't see a response a year from now, it didn't happen in a year. It's gonna take some years.
Yeah.
But don't stop fighting if it's something that you want. Because, in this life, that thing called love that Javon talked about, when you give love, love will return.
That's right.
Yes.
It will return.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dina. I appreciate that. And something we did on our Mother's Day show that we haven't done yet. And before I say my closing words, I want to give you both an opportunity. Dina just took the opportunity to say thank you by your father's name, Dina, and then Javon, your father's name, and anything you may want to say to or about him. What's your father's name, Dina?
Oh, my dad's name is Wiley Peaches Cofield, because no one knew his government name. And if you knew his government name, I knew that you worked with him, because everybody else in town, no one else knew that.
Mm-hmm.
And he was amazing. And I think I've spoken enough about my dad. He was amazing, and I'm truly thankful, blessed that I can call him my father. And to your father, Tracy, it wasn't long after I lost my dad that I traveled with you to Havelock. And your dad told me, I will be your dad. I thought that was so sweet.
That sounds about right.
Your dad, and I was so taken aback. And you're right, he did have the capacity to father. And your dad didn't know me; he just knew that I needed a dad, because I had just lost my dad, and he decided he wanted to step up to the plate to be. He could be my father too. So he's an incredible man, and you are definitely blessed to have had him, both you and Javon.
Yes.
And I can see the influence in both of you.
Yes. Dina, thank you so much for saying that about my dad. And I have to give to a point to Mr. Wiley Cofield how I was introduced to him. When I first met Dina, there was never an event she had that I did not see her dad right there, from a basic workshop to a speaking engagement to your television show. Your dad was in the audience, and I must say that touched me. And so when he passed, I could only imagine how that felt. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, she's a daddy's girl too. Different ways, different reasons. But I just want to say I saw his love for family and support of you with my own eyes. And that's commendable. And Javon, you know, I know your daddy. His name is?
My dad is Josiah Benjamin Wilson Jr., better known as Bup, B-U-P, or Bubba to the family. So I was sitting here thinking, like, you know, what you all have some like really, really great stories as far as your fathers are concerned. I didn't have a lot of one-on-one, you know, conversation. Like I said with my dad, we didn't have outings and things, but I was sitting here thinking, I can remember in the 80s, my dad, he was a school teacher. I can remember him saying, man, I didn't make but 9,000 such and such dollars this year. Wow. As a single parent this year. And I said, Daddy, you need to go get some food stamps. It's worse. I'll be damned. I'm going to keep on working. So he would work and do little mechanic stuff, you know, work on cars on the side of the yard after he got out of school and things like that, off of work from school, and switch from his suit and get right into his overalls and work out on cars and things like that. We always managed to have, and I'm sitting here thinking, as a single father making at that time $9,000 a year, we never lived but one place. He was a homeowner, which he still lives there today. We never sat in the dark. We never were without water. What a neighborhood may have been without water, we had water, lights, gas, some type of something to eat. Even if we had to be creative, we had something to chew on. He did what he knew. He was the oldest of 15. He lost his father. His father was only 54 years old. So he took on the responsibility of parenting his siblings, being the provider for them, as well as taking on his 3 that he gave birth to. So I look at that and I'm like, that is so commendable. Even though I didn't get the affection I thought I needed from my father, or I didn't have the lunch dates or daddy-daughter time, and I wasn't the typical daddy's girl, I'm his only girl, and he did what he knew. So I just say to my father, Josiah Wilson Jr., I really appreciate you and thank you for everything that you instilled in me, everything that you did, all the sacrifices that you made for me and my 2 brothers, even the fact that he gave us the gift of music by providing us musical instruments. And at 10 years old, he brought me my first flute, in which he was a musician, he was a band teacher, but he gave us music. He gave us all sorts of instruments, provided us with the books. He did not teach music at home though. It was on us to get it, you know? So I just commend him for stepping up in that way and giving us what we still utilize today. My brother still makes money playing in a band. You know, my other brother is a law enforcement officer, but he still plays his trumpet for different occasions and things. So I just commend him for being who he is and what he knew. So thanks, Dad.
Oh, that's sweet. And Javon used to still play for weddings, but you got to pull. She's an excellent flautist, but I know she don't want me to say. But yes, thank you, Uncle Josiah. That's what we call it.
I'll even go back and say to your dad, Mr. Walter Earl Jones.
Yes.
I love and commend you for being who you have been in my life. He played a vital role in my life when it was so necessary. I could have gone all the way left, but he gave me exactly what I needed at 18 years old. From 18 to about 20 years old, he was my buddy. We woke up, had breakfast together. We talked cereal ingredients and nutritional facts. Where he was eating Mueslix and I was eating the Apple Jacks. You know, Apple Jacks was more nutritional than his Mueslix. So I just appreciate just the talks, the biblical examples that he would give me to reflect on my life. He said, your life could be like so-and-so, or you could be like this, da, da, da. I would have never had that side from a male figure had it not been for him. So I just appreciate him, and happy Father's Day to him as well.
Oh, thank y'all. Thank y'all so much. You know, I appreciate that. And I know he will when he sees this. Walter Earl Jones, Sr. You know, I could say so much about my dad. And I did say earlier that my dad taught me from the pulpit. So he taught principles, not just the Bible. But my dad gave me the kingdom of God. I have to say that. And spirituality. And even And he gave me those things and showed me church. And I think that's two different perspectives. But as a pastor, as a Marine, y'all can imagine how strict that was. But I just thank God for what you all have said and what I learned from my dad. We were not an affectionate family at all. It wasn't until I was grown that we even hugged. But my dad, and like many men, many Black men specifically, they showed their affection through provisions.
That's right.
And so when we're looking for, I know nowadays things may have evolved differently, because I know my husband is affectionate with my daughter, and I know your children's fathers and husbands are affectionate with your children. But back then, my dad showed affection through provisions. And like you, Dina, or like you, Javon, it was, my sister had 2 babies at a young age, and she had every opportunity to go down to the WIC office and get food stamps and all that. And my dad said, no, you will not. Mm-hmm. If we're going to provide for this family. And that's what we did. He did all he had to do. We did the old folks term. We pulled together and came through. And I think she did end up getting WICs, but she did not get on food stamps. I'm not saying it's a problem with that. I'm just stating how he felt about it. Mm-hmm. And so I thank God for my dad giving me the opening to a relationship with God, and then cultivating that on Sunday mornings, Wednesday nights at church or whatever. But I don't think I missed anything. My first lunch date with my dad one-on-one was in 2006. A lot of people assumed we had that because he'd been that to other people. But I honestly believe that God gifted me. Mm-hmm. I do, with what I didn't get from my dad's presence. I believe some kind of way he gave me that innately. That I appreciate, who my dad was, or is, and even to my siblings, my brother and my sister, he did his best to do what he needed to do. And I know we started out the show talking about gift giving during Father's Day. And I thought about it from a behavioral science perspective, is that a lot of times with women and mothers, we like to show what we have versus a father likes to show what he's done. And then that goes back to provision. So a woman would say, I got this, I got flowers, I got perfume, I got shoes, I got a purse for Mother's Day. And that's sometimes why we don't go out to dinner, because a man will say, look what I have. Look at my home. Look at my grill. Look at my car. Those things to show, look what I have done. This is what I've done. This is what I've accomplished. So for anybody all over the world, first of all, we want to reiterate, Black men are in the home. You're looking at 3 women that have had it from fathers and have it as our children's fathers in the home. And so all Black men or all men are not deadbeats. And also, just because it didn't work out with the mama doesn't mean it can't work for the children.
That's right.
And give credit even when it isn't due, because it helps break the cycle and generational curses. We sit here as daddy's girls. And if you haven't had that privilege, which I do count it a privilege, make a way. There are all kinds of father figures that you can have in your life. If you do have the opportunity to make a relationship as right as it can be, it may not be as right as you may need it to be, because none of us felt like we had all we needed, but we got what we were supposed to. So if you have the opportunity to make that relationship right, make it right. If you have the opportunity to be that, be that man. Our sister needs to love us. I have to say, my husband, Owen McNeil, he advertises for all of my corporate legs more than I do. He wears a TracyMac shirt. He got a Sister Needs to Love a shirt, hat, bracelet, everything, and just that support, because you never know what support can go a long, long way when it comes to being a father figure. So happy Father's Day to all the dads, whatever country you're in. If you celebrate that, happy Father's Day. And just like Mother's Day, try to do your best to make it every day.
That's right.
Much love and peace.
You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, brought to you in part by TracyMac Solutions for Life Institute, coaching and training services. No doubt you have enjoyed being in our world, and it doesn't have to stop here. Head on over to blackwomensworld.com. This is my personal invitation to you to stay connected with me on social media and more. I'd love to see you there, and I'm so grateful you came to be with me here. Invite someone else to join you in our queendom next time, so they can feel the vibe of our tribe of Sister Nistas and Sister Nista lovers too. Remember to be kind, be authentic, be generous, be excellent, be grateful, and while you're at it, go ahead and be extraordinary, because that's just what Sister Nistas do, on purpose, through mission, with passion and compassion. It's a Black woman's world, baby, and you, my Sister Nista, are proof. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and your host, TracyMac. Wherever you are in the world, may you love and be loved by somebody. Peace.